Welcome boys and girls, Costin here with a discussion about the best DLC for every single race in the game. When I'm talking about the best in this context, I'm talking about the best value. Best campaigns, best units, lords, heroes that a DLC adds. Keep in mind that some campaigns that are really great may require or may warrant you to have another DLC to unlock the full potential. Just bear that in mind as I'm going through this list. So, starting with the Beastmen, Silence and the Fury. You get access to the entirety of the Beastmen roster, you get Tarax, you can't confederate the other Beastmen Legendary Lords unless you own the race pack, but this DLC will also give you Regiment's Renown, extra content that came with Silence and the Fury, beyond the regular Beastmen roster. If you're looking to play Beastmen, buying the race pack is not really worth it compared to getting Silence and the Fury. And realistically, I think you can get Silence and the Fury cheaper than the Beastmen race pack for roughly the same price, and it's also adding stuff for the Lizardmen. Bretonia, Chaos Dwarves, Demons of Chaos don't have DLC, or they are DLC. Speaking about the Chaos Dwarves, I think they are interesting. They have some pacing issues, but obviously they are a pretty well designed race, just some pacing issues on that subject. For the Dark Elves, interesting subject on it, because you do have two DLCs. You have Queen of the Crone, and you have Shadow and Blade. Shadow and Blade as Malice Dark Blade, and while the units themselves are not necessarily too important, you get more from this than with Queen of the Crone for the Dark Elves. Regiment's Renown, both of them have Regiment's Renown, but you do get the Master Hero, you get Medusae, and while Malice Darkblade isn't the best Legendary Lord in terms of his campaign, I would say that this DLC is worth it more than Queen of the Crone. It depends though if you're interested in playing the other race that's also attached to it. Like Masters though are pretty good heroes and you can acquire quite a few of them, so that is really what it boils down to. Dwarves. Well, you have King the Warlord, and you have Masters of Innovation from Thrones Decay. This is no contest. Malachi's campaign is easily the best campaign, or one of the best campaigns in the entire game. In terms of the actual content beyond that, you do get a replenishment hero. Sure, you do get some nifty units. But I would generally say it's more so that you're gaining value from the campaign as opposed to units or lords or regiments renown here. With regards to King the Warlord, Belegar's campaign is not really worth playing, though he is worth confederating, so keep that aspect in mind. Like, out of the two of them, I would actually say that if you're playing another Dwarven campaign, Belegar is worth confederating more than Malachi. Malachi is really great when you're playing him. Keep in mind, you also get Rune Lords, which are a pretty good lord choice and better than Demon Slayers most of the time. But yeah, Malachi wins hands down with Thrones Decay. For the Dwarves, keep in mind you can buy each Thrones Decay pack, Lord pack individually. Then we get to the Empire. We get 3 DLCs. We got Beast and Hunter, Grim the Grave, and Thrones Decay for the Empire. Out of these 3, Thrones Decay wins again. There's a reason why that DLC was so well received. If you look at Beast and Hunter, the stuff that it adds, like Huntsmen, Huntsman Generals, Archers, War Wagons, none of it is really worth it. The campaign, the Regiment's Renown, the units, pretty much nothing in this DLC is worth it. Not the Lord, not the Legendary Lord, not the generic Lord, nothing really. One could argue about Archers, but you don't need Archers post-TOD rework for the Empire. You used to, because of the various issues the Empire had. But nowadays it's very easy to recruit a bunch of useful units even at tier 1, so Archers just not that great. Grim the Grave, Volkmar's campaign is not particularly great. Sure, Regiment's Renown, Arch Lectures, all that, but yeah, Elspeth wins out. Not because of herself, actually. Although I would say she's a much better Legendary Lord to play than Biter Volkmar or Marcus Wolfart or both of them together. But really, you're getting an engineer heroes, lords, gunpowder units on all iron sides, Hockland long rifles. So there's a lot of useful things. By the way, if you're playing a Karl Franz campaign, you can confederate Elspeth. You just won't be... however, if she does die in battle, or if she is slain, from what I know, you won't be able to revive her. So keep that aspect in mind in regards to it. But yeah, in general, I would say like this is really the DLC that adds the most value for the Empire. And really, the only one that's really worth it. Cafe only has one DLC, so if you want to buff up your roster for Cafe, go ahead, get Shadows of Change if you want to do so. Greenskins. Well, we have three choices. We have King the Warlord for the Greenskins, we have Warden Punch, and we have Omens of Destruction. My perspective on this subject is as follows. I don't really think in a lot of ways that Omens of Destruction is worth it all that much. Some useful units, to be sure, Lord Choice, etc. But if you really want a useful DLC from the sake of units, I'd probably go with Warden the Punch or King the Warlord. I would probably say Warden the Punch because it gives you a replenishment hero, which is very useful, but that's kind of it. Well, that and Stone Trolls. So this is really a difficult one. I would say that King the Warlord Skarsnik's campaign right now is the best campaign out of the DLC Lords. So it does boil down to that decision. If you want the best campaign out of these three packs, go with Skarsnik. If you want the most useful hero, go with Warden and Punch, and also Stone Trolls. Grom's campaign is not worth playing right now, though, so bear that in mind. Just a lot of issues. He's been left behind in that respect. Gorbat, he's a powerful lord, very powerful lord. I just think his unique faction mechanic isn't really that worth it. So personally, I probably lean more towards, like, if I'm looking just to get a better campaign, I'd probably get King and the Warlord. If I'm looking to buff up the unit in the roster, I'd get War and Punch. And yes, that means Omens of Destruction is the least useful DLC for Greenskins. Probably Warden and Punch wins, potentially, because it might be related to High Elves. High Elves! Well, we get Warden and Punch, and we get Queen the Crow. Now, Warden and the Punch gives you Archmage Lords, which are really, really good, but Elfarian's campaign is not necessarily the greatest. I would say right now, if you're looking to play a High Elven campaign, it's probably worth getting both, because that's how you're going to gain control over all of Wolf-1. But if I had to choose, I would go with Queen of the Crown. It's not because Alariel's campaign is better than Elfarian's, but what she adds, like you get Sisters of Avalorn, you get Handmaidens, which are probably the best heroes from a campaign perspective of any race flat out. They don't offer something that you don't have already because they give replenishment and you have that already. But the benefit really is that they give a lot of benefits for how High Elves work right now. Though, I would wait until Tides of Torment comes out to see how things change for High Elves, but right now I would say Queen of the Throne is generally more useful. The things that Elfarian adds are basically for his campaigns, so they're not really benefiting his race in itself. Khorne, well, Omens of Destruction is the only DLC. The question is Omens of Destruction worth it? Well, let me say it like this. You get Skull Reapers, Wrathmongers, and Blood Speakers, basically, out of the important things. Skull Taker's campaign is not the best Khorne campaign. I would much rather play Scarbrand or Arbol, who's available for free, than buying Omens of Destruction for Skull Taker's campaign, just the lustrous starting position. You're not really missing much. You're missing 2 legendary heroes. If you don't buy it, you're missing some units that aren't really the most important things, and there are better units in another DLC, far better units in certain ways, in another DLC for this. So I don't think Omens of Destruction is worth it for Khorne. Yeah, that's kind of one of the problems of Omens of Destruction. Great reworks, a lot of great free content, but the paid stuff, with exception of Ogres, it's kind of whatever. Kislev, is Shadows of Change worth it? Astanka's campaign is not great. The units, the stuff that it adds for Kislev except Hag Witches and Akshina, not important. So I would say like Shadow's Chain is something you can skip for Kislev. I'd say like Boris Ursus has a much better campaign than Astankia. So yeah, that's one of the skippable ones as I see it. Lizardmen. So Lizardmen have Silence and Fury. So if you're getting Beastmen, you'll get the Silence, which is Axial, which is arguably the best campaign for the Lizardmen. Outside of that, you have the Cult of Sotek with Prophet and the Warlock, and Beast and a Hunter. Beast and a Hunter is not flat, not worth it. Nakai's campaign is pretty solid, but the kind of stuff that you're getting regiments around, you're getting some units, but it's not really important. If you really want to buy a DLC for a campaign, sure, could be worth it, but I think like it's more useful from my view to get Axial, Silence, and Fury, just more interesting stuff overall, like campaign, units, heroes, etc. From my view. Norska, well, there's only the Norska and race pack. We'll wait with Tides of Torment. I don't think Norska as a race pack is worth it right now. We'll see after Tides of Torment. Nurgle. Is it worth buying a Nurgle DLC? I like Tamarkan in a lot of ways, sure, but I am not necessarily the biggest fan of Nurgle. Besides, like with Khorne, it's worth it to buy another DLC, specifically Champions of Chaos, if you really want to get access to more of the Nurgle roster. On the flip side, Tamarkan has the best campaign of Nurgle by far, at least for Nurgle as a race. Festus has the best Nurgle campaign overall, at least from a Plague perspective, but really the Chieftain mechanic is pretty fun. So, if you just want the campaign, I would get Tamarkan from Thrones of Decay. If you're looking for units, heroes, etc., I would get Champions of Chaos. Ogres only have one DLC, and that's Omens of Destruction. Is it worth it? Well, I think Greasus and Scrag have pretty good campaigns right now. I think the Ogre baseline roster is pretty good. There are some things that are added. I would generally say, though, it completes the roster and makes it more useful. So if you're looking to play Ogres, you can play them by default. Certainly, between buying the Ogre race pack, if you don't have it already, and buying Omens of Destruction, I'd probably say getting Omens of Destruction. I'm not sure with how it works with Confederation if you defeat Scrag and Greasus in that. But yeah, with Ogres, if you have to choose between race pack and Omens of Destruction, I go with Omens of Destruction. If you have the race pack already, it can help complete the roster, but it's not required. So that's my perspective on that. Skaven. Now, a lot of people will argue that it's Prophet and the Warlock, no-brainer. But here's the thing. While this adds Rattling Gunners and Jezzails, they are not essential units in a Skaven campaign. I'm quite serious, because that's pretty much all they add. Yes, Ikiclaw has a better campaign, especially now that Mogr seems to have been pacified a bit, and he's not going to wreck Estalia, at least in this patch. Maybe that will change. So that does create a better campaign dynamic. But from my perspective, the best campaign for Skaven to purchase, the best DLC to purchase, is actually Shadow and Blade. And the reason is, you get Warp Grinders, you get Poison Wind Mortars, you get a bunch of really useful things, and genuinely I do think that in terms of campaign pacing, that Snitch has the better campaign than Ikiclaw. Though, that might change. Like, you have free DLCs, I don't think Fra is worth it. Sure, they all have unique campaigns, but Ikiclaw and Fra have pacing issues, design issues, etc. I just think Snitch works best, but it depends on what you're interested in. However, I'm gonna say, I think that Warp Grinders and Poison Wind Mortars are worth it more than Jezzails and Rattling Gunners at the moment. At least if you're not playing Ikiclaw, which, obviously, if you were, you would get those units anyway. So that's my view. I think you get more from Shadow and Blade. Prophet and Warlock is probably second. I would not really bother too much with Frot's DLC. Slaanesh, there's no DLC. Well, there is Champions of Chaos, but don't play Slaanesh until Tides of Torment comes out. Tomb Kings, is the Tomb King race pack worth it? Kind of. I mean, they've improved things with the update, but in terms of campaigns, I think they're better, but they're still not the high tier. They still don't have top tier campaigns from my view, so I wouldn't recommend the Tomb Kings at the moment as a race pack. Tzeentch. Well, you get the same situation. Champions of Chaos and Shadows of Change. This is not even a fucking discussion. The Changeling is easily one of the most boring and broken and terrible campaigns that CA has ever designed. It's not because he's weak. No, he's ridiculously strong. And generally, I don't have a problem with power creep, but this campaign is just like the intern button simulator. For some people, that might be fine, but let me put it like this. This is the least popular campaign in the game. And it's not just because of Shadows of Change. Even with updates and changes and pricing structures, people detest this campaign. People who have played it detest this campaign. So yeah, if you're buying a Siege DLC, it's Champions of Chaos. If you care about Siege whatsoever. Vampire Coast, don't fucking touch it. It's a worthless race. Don't spend your money on it. Like, this is like the one thing you never get unless you just want to complete your DLC collection. It's like bottom of the list, along with the Blood DLC. Vampire Counts, you only have Grim in the Grave, and it's not important whatsoever, so it's not worth it. Warriors of Chaos, you got two choices here. We've got Champions of Chaos or the Race Pack. Out of the two, the way to view the situation is as follows. Archeon, Sigvald, and Kolek are the better lords. However, everyone can play Be'lakor. You won't be able to confederate Kolek, Sigvald. You won't be able to confederate others unless you own their DLCs. But Be'lakor has access to the exact same roster you get from the Warriors of Chaos race pack. The campaigns, I would dare say Archeon in general is just much better than the Monogod ones, but Be'lakor is better than Archeon. Flat out. As for Champions of Chaos, I would say Champions of Chaos is more useful for the various demonic races because the units it gives Chaos Knights or Lances for Thorn, Chaos Warriors, Chosen, etc. There's a lot of useful things from Champions of Chaos. But the campaigns themselves, well, with the exception of Festus having the best play campaign in the game for Nurgle, with that exception, I would say like the Monogod ones are just better. So, for campaigns, don't bother with any of the DLCs available to Warriors of Chaos, just play Be'lakor. For the sake of Pokemoning Legendary Lords, I would get Warriors as opposed to Monogods. But for units and heroes, I get Champions of Chaos. But essentially, it's more useful for other races. For the Warriors of Chaos themselves, it's not too important either way. You're missing some stuff, but you also still have a lot of stuff. With Elves, you got the Race Pack, and you get Twisted and Twilight. Twisted and Twilight, you can still confederate Durfu, you can still confederate Taran, you won't get Dry Cup, but you still have the entirety of the Wood Elven roster you get from the Race Pack, and you get some stuff extra on top of that. While the Sisters may not be the most interesting campaign from the Will Elves, though that's a matter of perspective, you just get more stuff. Regiments Renown, units, all the goodies that got added with Twisted and Twilight for the Wood Elf race. So it's a no-brainer from my perspective. And that's all I had to say on the subject. And just as a kind of side note on this, what are my personal expectations with regards to Tides of Torment? Well, I think it's, well, when we're looking at, I think the Norse Cup part, because you'll be able to get access to the roster that already exists for Norse Cup, it will be worth it. Even if you're missing on Wolfert and Trog, it will be worth more than the Race Pack. For High Elves, that depends on what they fully add for that. But I think it's going to be really, really hard to beat Handmaidens from perspective of a unit. And it's going to be hard beating Handmaidens and Sisters. That's a great hero, that's a great unit. So it's really difficult to beat that combo. But we'll find out what that is. Skycutters can be useful elemental, sure, but yeah, depends on Aceland's campaign situation. As for Slaanesh, I think it's going to be hard to beat Champions of Chaos, regardless of what they do for the Kala. Regardless, that's all I have to say. Questine signing out. Stay tuned for more.